is Fiona's going to give us a kind of an overview of the program, the Digital Spaces program.
Morning.
Thank you, Fiona.
Thanks, Linda. So welcome everyone. As Linda said, my name is Fiona Morris. I'm the creative director and CEO of the space. I'm a middle-aged white woman with fair hair and glasses, and I'm wearing a black polo neck jumper. And first of all, thanks to everyone for taking the time to join us here today. It's great to have so many library services here, including, of course, really importantly, the partners that were involved with us in the Digital Spaces programme. And firstly, I wanted to thank them all for the enthusiasm and the energy they've displayed in taking part in the programme. We're delighted with the outstanding quality of the work that's been produced and the range of audience engagement across all the programme strands that they've presented within their services. And I'd also briefly like to thank our delivery partners. So that's Libraries Connected, Neonate and Virtual Umbrella, who you'll be hearing from later, and then our funding partners, the Arts Council of England and the BFI. The Digital Spaces programme has been running for just over 15 months, and as it draws to a close, as Linda has already alluded to, we wanted to share some of what we've learned, celebrate some of what's been created, and to begin to discuss some of the outcomes and the potential next steps. So for those of you who are new to the programme, what is Digital Spaces? So I've said a 15-month digital programme funded by Arts Council England and the BFI. And that has been taking place in collaboration with 9 library services around England. So to give them all a quick name check: Bradford, Cambridgeshire, Coventry, Leeds, Manchester, Newham, Nottinghamshire, Somerset and Sunderland. The ambition for the project at the outset was to establish a libraries digital network, exploring how we might transform the ways that communities interact with digital content through their local library services. This has been delivered through an ambitious programme of digital commissions delivered by each library service, running alongside a 12-month touring programme of VR content and supported throughout by a series of peer group networking opportunities and a number of audience research deep dives in some services and in-service VR 180 masterclasses. So shortly we'll be hearing directly from some of the library services talking about their digital commissions, the scoping processes behind them, the development of partnerships with their local communities, artists and other creatives to help deliver them. And I just wanted to say it's been so great to see how everyone has used the opportunity to make something amazing for their service users, but each one is really distinct and reflects local community interests and stories. But before we get to that, we're going to hear about the National VR Tour. We've been delighted by the impact and feedback, both the kind of qualitative numbers of people and the quantitative feedback of what people have enjoyed, by the variety of content that people have chosen to experience when they're trying out the VR titles. It's been really, really interesting, and we'll hear a little bit more about that later from Viv. So at this point, I'm going to hand back to Linda to talk about the VR tour in more detail. Thanks.
Thanks, Fiona. So I'm going to invite the first panel to join me. So that's Gemma and Bertie and Karina and Helen. Do you want to put your cameras on? Hello. So I'm going to get you all to just do a very quick introduction first, and then we'll get into the questions. So I'll start with Gemma. Do you want to introduce and describe yourself?
Yes, certainly. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gemma. I've been project managing the VR tour for this Digital Spaces programme. I am white, mid-40s. I have mid-length, reddy brown, little bit of grey hair, and I wear glasses.
Thanks, Gemma. And Bertie, would you like to introduce yourself and describe yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name's Bertie. I'm one of the co-founders of Virtual Umbrella. White man, mid-length brown hair, got a bit of a beard, a bit scraggly. I've got some bags under my eyes thanks to a very keen toddler who loves reading books at 4 a.m. at the moment. My role in this project was to lead on the VR content selection, licensing, and sorting hardware, so the VR headsets, to make the tour as frictionless as possible for all of our wonderful library services.
Thanks very much. And Karina, would you like to introduce and describe yourself?
Yeah, I'm Karina Blake, Operations Manager with Coventry Libraries. I am a white female, blonde hair, glasses, also in my 40s. And I just wanted to come along today and talk about the VR experience with Coventry Libraries.
Thank you. And Helen.
Hi, I'm Helen Ackroyd. I'm Libraries and Culture Manager for Inspire Culture Learning Libraries, which is the Nottinghamshire Library Service. I'm a middle-aged woman with glasses and dyed purple hair.
Lovely, thank you. And before we go any further, can I just point everybody to this Helen's screen behind her, which is a really lovely image from the Inspire Commission, which we're not covering today because we can't cover all of them, but we're also going to put a link in to information about all of the commissions, and that is leaf number 3, which you can watch a version of, and it's very lovely. So I just wanted to say that. Somebody's asking in chat, is anybody else's sound iffy? Okay, no, it sounds like it might be a local issue. Thank you very much. Right, so I'm going to start with Gemma. Can you, in just a couple of minutes, Gemma, can you sort of introduce the idea of the VR tour, what you wanted to achieve and how you did that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the VR tour was it originated with Digital Spaces 1, which was with Dave and Karina in Coventry in 2000, and I think it was 22. And from that, the idea was, I mean, I say a simple idea, but basically, could we extend that so that libraries become the sort of digital creative hubs? And we felt that VR was an exciting, innovative way to make that happen. On a sort of more practical way, we used 15 headsets supplied by Virtual Umbrella at Bertie. 10 were to be in use at any time, with 5 as backup, each with preloaded content, and they would travel between library services. Within the first cycle, we did it over the first 6 months, was cycle 1. Funnily enough, the second 6 months was cycle 2. And in cycle 1, the headsets spent just over, I think, 2 weeks at each service, with a few days in between services for transportation, kit checks, but also crucially staff onboarding or training. The training, we used the word onboarding as well because there were quite a few services who had come across VR headsets before, maybe not necessarily those models, but they had experience with it. But the importance of this sort of onboarding and training was the different kit, but also building confidence, not just setting that kit up, but talking about the different content with the visitors and how you might sort of encourage them to give it a go. One of the things I suppose that we were most proud of, even just at the end of cycle 1, was that we were seeing through our culture counts evaluations that we were doing, was that the vast majority of library services were reporting they were getting brand new visitors coming through their doors. So by the end of cycle 1, we were already really well set up for what we felt was a really positive programme to date.
Brilliant. And as I said, later on, Viv Niblett, who's been running the evaluation programme for this, will be able to sort of talk in a little bit more detail about the outcomes, the evaluation of the VR tour. Thank you. So can you just say, so we talked much about it there being 2 cycles. What did you do differently on the second cycle? Just to kind of give a sense of how it grew and changed.
Yeah, so the second cycle was more shaped by, obviously, by what we'd learned in the first one. The first tour was kind of built more around logistic convenience, so where the library services were and how we were going to move the headsets from one to another, and also the fact that we were providing this onboarding for the staff within cycle 1. Cycle 2, we didn't need that element because obviously it was repeat. The staff were very familiar with the kit and with the content, even though content changed. But the second time round, we were much more sort of intentional. We curated the schedule much more to align with key events that the libraries already had in their calendars. So it meant we could utilise, they were getting people through the door for different things. There were, they had themes or things that were already going on in their services. So we were able to really sort of build on that and help elevate that. We also refreshed the content. Again, Bertie will speak to that shortly, but we did keep Wallace and Gromit because it remained very popular, got folk through the doors particularly. Did need a bit more hands-on sort of support from the libraries because there were little tricky elements. I've still not been able to complete it, but that is not saying anything. I'm just a bit rubbish. But we also then featured some meditative stuff. We injected some narrative-led films like Leica. Again, I'm not taking Bertie's things away from him. But we also then featured the collection of community-made immersive films that were created during the masterclasses that some of the library services had been involved with. So they were People and Places films, and they were made available through a made app that Neonate created. That was meant libraries and audiences could watch work that came from other areas in England. So it was like a little view into life elsewhere. So yeah, it was nice to have that refresh, and it was nice to sort of create something, curate something that really sort of worked with the calendars for all the libraries.
Well, I think we'll come back to that point as well, that thing of, fitting a new element in with the work, the massive amount of work that libraries are already doing. Thanks, Gemma. Thank you. Bertie, hello.
Hello.
So Gemma's already sort of hinted at some of the content that that you chose, and so I just wanted you to, we're going to put a link in so that people can see the list of all of the content. But just you could give us an overview of the sort of the considerations, how you chose what content would work for public library settings, or these particular public library settings.
Yeah. So we kind of had like three priorities really, which was that we wanted to ensure that there was something for everyone. We only want to showcase high quality work. And we kind of wanted to sort of shift this perception a bit that virtual reality is just video games, or it's just sort of focused for kids and things like that. So with this in mind, we sort of looked at getting a key content piece as like our foundation, something that would bring people in or would be recognizable. So for that, we found Wallace and Gromit, worldwide beloved piece of intellectual property. And then this was supplemented by content from alternative pillars. So like Gemma mentioned, we kind of have music, mindfulness, arts, and then an archive kind of historical piece. And if you look at the link, you'll be able to see all the pieces. Then about halfway through the tour, so for phase 2, we added 2 more pieces of content to sort of bulk up the catalogue a bit more. So these were Leica and Hold the World. So Leica is a wonderful storytelling piece. It's about space, and it's about the dog that went into space. Then Hold the World is a historical piece where you get to sit in the Natural History Museum and handle artifacts and a hologram or a volumetric capture, so a holographic type thing of David Attenborough sitting in front of you and talking you through these pieces. So it was like, how do we add something that is going to be really well known and beloved, and also really interesting and fit a sector we didn't necessarily have. After we had this content selection, we had to think about audience access requirements and general attitudes. So we aim for a mix of interactive and non-interactive work. So things like Wallace and Gromit are very interactive and require moving around a space, while pieces that we also had like Phase Space and Lark Ascending were designed to be enjoyed while seated with minimal interaction. So the only interaction was like just moving your controller and clicking or looking at something. And then finally, we need to ensure that the content was easy for library staff to facilitate. So to do this, we had a device management solution where all the available content was just there on the headset's home screen. So all you did was turn the headset on, and then all the content was there available for you to choose, to make it as easy as possible for general public and users when they came in. And we also provided a walkthrough guide for things like Wallace and Gromit. So where that is a little bit more complex, it meant that library staff can get involved and assist if they need to. If someone's saying, help, I'm stuck. Or if it's really busy, you can just leave it there as a reference guide so that users can pop the headset off, have a look at where they are, where they're stuck, and then jump back in from there.
Fab. Thanks, Bertie. Thanks. So we've sort of a bit of thinking about kind of the planning on this from the point of view of the space and the putting together of the package of the tour and how it might work. But now I wanted to ask Karina and then Helen about how, from your side, Karina, what were you thinking about? How did you approach this? The VR tour. You were the first of the libraries to have this set of headsets come round. What were some of the things you were thinking about?
Yeah, so we were we were fortunate to be first, but also it was because we'd got the experience from having the VR tour before. So we came with that sort of package of knowledge already. So straight away, we wanted to get staff involved, to get them familiar, get them enthusiastic. And because as soon as you have a little go and you're then enthusiastic and you want to then encourage other people to come and try it, and you can start talking about some of the different experiences that were available. And we did recognise that there were some new elements here. So new headsets, so some subtle differences. The idea of using hand controllers, we hadn't used hand controllers before, and also the gaming element. So previously we'd had very much seated experiences, and we recognised there might be an element of standing. And there was a few things for us to factor in and make sure we'd planned, and we were sort of factored in some flexibility. So we wanted to try some seated elements, maybe try some standing sessions and interact, so we could then feed that back and help support other authorities as well, and how it develops then going forwards.
Yes. And what was there anything you were particularly pleased about in how the tour went? How your couple of weeks, that first time or the second part of the cycle? Anything standout moments for you?
Yeah, it was lovely having people coming back that had experienced it before. New content, new experience, they'd come back again, but then also having completely new people that had not engaged with libraries before. As you said, this was a new way of marketing the library and getting people to come in, but they also felt safe to try this technology in the library space. And so that was really lovely to then have those conversations and see them wanting to come back again over the 2 weeks.
Lovely, thank you, thanks very much. And Helen, following on from that, can you sort of outline what you hoped to achieve from having all this lovely content on headsets, and what worked for you?
Yes, I think unlike Coventry, we had no experience at all. So we went in with no knowledge, but excitement, and the training was really helpful. And that quite quickly, the delivery team felt fairly comfortable with the way it was set up, with the headsets and with the platform that allowed it to be as simple as possible. I don't think we knew whether the audience were going to come because it was VR or because of the content, which was really interesting. I also don't think we knew whether we'd get all ages. I think before it began, we probably thought we'd get the younger end. We got all ages, which was brilliant. We decided to move it round. So in our tour periods, we moved it to 3 or 4 different libraries within our service, and we went for weekends or half terms. And people definitely joined in because of the content. So they might have wanted to have a go at VR, but even more reluctant people were then interested because they wanted to sit opposite David Attenborough because they love David Attenborough, or they wanted to play with Wallace and Gromit, or they loved classical music. So the thought of sitting virtually next to Nicola Bernadetti made them willing to have a go and allay those sort of worries, trepidations about putting a headset on. I think most people that came and had a go had little or no experience, which was really interesting. I think we thought we'd get a lot more younger people that, oh, I've got one of these at home, I know what I'm doing. We had very little of that, which is quite interesting. And we also, because we moved it around the libraries, absolutely got as many frontline staff having a go, because there's a broad lack of understanding, but also they're the people, they're the gold dust that talk to the customer. So if they've had a go and it didn't make them feel sick, didn't make them feel dizzy, they understood it was that they were then talking with enthusiasm to the customers, and that worked really well when it came back round and we revisited some of those libraries again.
Fab, thank you. So just following on from that, what's been the impact on your service? Has it had an impact on your service having this tour? And if so, what would that be?
Yes, me. Do you want me to answer that
Yes,
one?
please.
Sorry, Linda.
Yeah,
yes,
that's okay.
Yes, definitely. We've had conversations with other partners, so it's formed a bit of a digital cluster, because what we've realised is that other arts organisations around us are also dipping toes into things and trying stuff. So we've formed a bit of a network to be able to talk about what next and what could we do. Out of the commission bit, we've ended up with a touring travel case of headsets. So that building up of confidence on the VR tour with frontline staff now means they're confident to book out that travel case to see the films we made on the other bits of the project. And I think as a programme team, we feel more confident we're putting in funding applications for other digital things, which we wouldn't have done before, definitely. So it's been brilliant for us.
Fab, thanks, Helen. And Karina, what about you? What impact on your services or on your users? Is there anything you could say about that?
Yeah, it's very much part of our core offer now. So we've got a dedicated VR space at our central library because we noticed the impact immediately and we really wanted to keep investing in this going forward. It gives us new life. It gives us an opportunity. We take it out on tour. We go out to other venues. For example, it's been Aspirations Week and we've been able to engage with local schools, or we might take it out to, we've got a dementia-friendly library and we might take it out and utilise it in those spaces as well. So it gives us all these other opportunities to then network and work with our partners, as well as locally, there's more investment in VR technology and people then engage with us and want to see if we can share some of the content and work alongside them. So yeah, it's been really exciting.
Oh, brilliant. It's nice to see how much I'm enjoying watching you reflecting back on it, both of you, and thinking how much there's a lot of smiling going on. That's what I'm noticing. Thank you. So to the audience, if you've got any questions for any of our panel, please do put them into the chat and we'll ask the questions out loud. But in the meantime, Bertie is going to come back to you and just sort of say what was interesting for you about working across 9 library services with the different needs of each one.
So for us, and like for the work that I normally do, I do a lot of things with VR all the time, but it's either for like arts festivals or professional services doing training, or it's me on the ground, like being the person actually delivering it. So this gave me a really new perspective about, like, it forced me to think much more deeply about what the end user experience is and what the experience is for the library staff, and how do we make this as engaging as possible for people coming in? How do we make it feel like they've really had a good time seeing this, but without making it exceptionally difficult for staff to enable that? So that was really interesting, sort of having to almost think steps further than I normally would have to. And then additionally for us, we found that working with multiple library services, it presents us like with a new challenge in terms of content licensing and securing the content from providers. So with wonderful guidance from the space and from Sheridan's Legal, we've developed a new licensing model, which hopefully is going to like open opportunities to scale this out in the future and reach a broader audience. But there's way too much to talk about for this webinar about that. So feel free to drop something in the questions.
Sorry, Bertie, I interrupted you. Say that last bit again. Feel free to.
I was just saying, feel free to drop questions in the Q&A, or get in touch with us afterwards about that if you want to learn more.
Thank you. Thanks ever so much. And Gemma, was there anything else from you about what was really interesting about working with 9 library services?
I think there are a couple of things that we learned over that period of time. One is the reality of how much library staff have to do, how stretched they are. They're managing all sorts of different things, all demands at the same time, and often with limited resources. But what was brilliant was to realize also how adaptable and curious, how excited, once we'd got to that point where we were like, this is what we mean, they just ran with it. And it was just incredible to see this something new and wanting to bring new things to their communities, and them following with their excitement of how these new communities that were coming into the libraries were responding to it. So that was lovely. It was brilliant to see. And and that confidence growing. And I mean, that's the second thing, that sort of ripple effect of the training and watching the staff become more confident and start to talk to other people, not only the customers but also supporting their own colleagues, and building that sort of all those networks as Helen sort of talked to about as well, and watching that grow and how much more we could possibly do. So it's just the beginning, I'd say.
Smashing, thank you. And we've been asked a question: have the libraries created new content for their ongoing work with VR, or just used the content created for this tour? And but you spoke, didn't you, earlier, Gemma, about the community films that were made that were then added onto the headset. So a bit of both. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say about that.
No, yeah, that was one element of it, was masterclasses. As I said, the content was created to share that, and some in the commissions as well, but that'll come along later.
Indeed, thank you. Thank you very much. So just Karina and Helen, is there anything else that you would like to say to the audience about this work? Anything you haven't had a chance to say?
Just it's been brilliant. I think we didn't know what doors it would open, and it's been really, really interesting, and just the start, as Gemma says. Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess I would just like to add that there was a fun element to it, but there was also this emotional element. So some of the content you had people really connected to it. It's so immersive. And so our library staff were just brilliant at having those conversations, and particularly after, when somebody's taken the headset off and come back into the real world, we had some really powerful conversations afterwards. And so that's why I think there's such a lot of buy-in from library staff, because we've seen the impact that it has to individuals.
That's lovely. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to invite Sarah Jane Meredith to join us. So Sarah Jane is the Senior Manager for National Lottery Audiences Projects at the BFI, who are one of our funding partners. And we're just interested, Sarah Jane, in your reflections on what you've just heard and about the project more generally. Thank you.
Oh, hi there. Yes, I'm Sarah Jane Meredith. I'm a middle-aged woman with fair hair and I wear glasses. I have to say, what's great is I've heard the word brilliant, enthusiasm. It's fantastic. When we set out to fund this, gosh, I don't know when we made the decision. It must have been over 2 years ago, maybe, we made the decision. And it wasn't really clear what would happen, how the libraries would respond, although, of course, Coventry had set a really good foundation for this work. I think what we at the BFI, what we really want to do is ensure audiences right across the UK have access to cultural activity engagement, which they don't normally have. And the libraries has really been the perfect network for that. We've set up networks for cinemas and we set up networks for immersive spaces, but libraries are fantastic at demonstrating they are truly in the community. I also like the fact that people returned, they were first timers, they were all ages, all different capabilities, and the flexibility within the library services to offer seated, to offer standing, to offer interactive, because some people don't want to participate much more than they have to. It's interesting that the content was a driver as well as wanting to try out the experience. We're really keen to see, this webinar is great. It's fantastic hearing straight firsthand from the library services. And we're really keen to see the evaluation because we hope this is going to be a longer term project. And maybe, I know that the Space and the Arts Council have a particular focus in England. We have a focus on the UK. So it would be great to see this expanded, maybe through Libraries Connected. But it just, all the enthusiasm, it's just been a brilliant project. It's one of those ones which really hits the aims of the BFI National Lottery Audience Projects Fund. So we're really pleased to be a partner.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you ever so much. So we've got some questions, but I'm really mindful of time. So I'm going to organise them if that's all right. So Gemma, when we finish this session, would you be all right to go into the chat and answer the question at 11:31? Would you be able to just type an answer to that? So because I'm just organise all of that. Bertie, can you do the same? There's an 11:30 question about the VR products. Thank you. And then the other question is the one about did the session entice people for the first time? Was it building digital confidence? I think we'll get to that point. We're going to speak a bit about the initial evaluation findings. Viv Niblett's going to cover that later on, which I think touches on all of that. So that's and I don't think I've missed anything. Okay. Bertie, there's another question there about 11:31. So if you wouldn't mind, that's excellent. Thank you ever so much. Thank you all for sharing your reflections on the project, and we really, really appreciate you giving the time, and also to Sarah Jane for joining us. So fab. You can all disappear now, panel, and I'm going to invite the next panel to join me. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. So the next panel. So that is where we're firstly looking at the VR tour, and then the second part of this project that we're really focusing on is the individual digital commissions that the different libraries made. So so we really, as I said, we've looked at 9 of them, but we're really focusing in on 3 examples to kind of give you a sense of the range, the ways that people approached it, the ambition and the audience that were in mind. So this is a flavour, and then there's more information about all of them on our website. So I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves one at a time, and then they're going to introduce the project, what it was they wanted to achieve and how they did that. So I'm going to get the first person we're going to hear from is Jamie Hutchinson from Leeds Library. So Jamie, just will you introduce yourself, describe yourself, and then give us your overview, introduce the project, The Speaking Garden, to us.
Yeah. So my name's Jamie Hutchison, and I'm the Senior Librarian for Art, Music and Creativity here in Leeds. I'm a white middle-aged man wearing a blue top and glasses. And yeah, I suppose it's where did it start really? But we've been doing a lot of work on my arts floor with the exhibition space. This is a space with no windows. And we were wanting to basically do with this project a gardening exhibition, but obviously being a windowless space in the middle of November brought its kind of challenges, and over the last few years we've been really kind of trying to work out what that exhibition space is for us and what we can kind of put on, and it's not an art gallery, it's a gallery within a library space. So it has to have that kind of community-faced work, accessible to all, open to every age group and demographic. So yeah, really kind of wanted to support what we were doing across the arts floor, allow people to kind of get knowledge from library spaces, experience and kind of support, but this kind of really does flow into our exhibition spaces. So we, each year we put on kind of 4 large exhibitions, and this felt like an amazing opportunity to really kind of contribute to our exhibition program. So yeah. And
you've put together a really good little film, haven't you? That we'll put in. We can't stream films on the webinar because we never know what the quality is going to be like for the person on the other end. So what we're going to do is just drop the film into the chat, because it gives a really good flavour, isn't it, of all the elements of it? Because I think you're kind of always underselling how fantastic and extensive the project was, I have to say.
Yeah. So behind me is a bit of a visual from some of the exhibition. But yeah, it kind of all kind of came together. We had the British Library exhibition coming to the Central Library, and it was just a touring exhibition. So it was kind of quite small. We've also been working with Google Arts and Culture and scanning our collections. And so it kind of started to formulate this idea that we were going to kind of use gardening as the theme for this project. And what we really wanted to do with this exhibition and the sort of aims for us was about kind of bringing the outside in, and really kind of getting experience a garden inside, a program that kind of brings our collections alive, and really kind of evolves the community. So we've been scanning with the amazing kind of Google scanner, the GOT collection. And this is a collection of 600 early English gardening books and periodicals from the sort of 16th, 17th and 18th century. And this is from the GOT family, which is a big local textile manufacturing family. We had the British Library exhibition Unearth coming. We had the VR headsets, we had the VR workshops, and really kind of wanted to bring it all together to kind of, in a way, take over the whole building, take over the whole Central Library as part of this exhibition. So yeah, it really started to sort of formulate what we wanted and what we wanted to achieve.
Excellent, thank you. And you haven't even mentioned Light Night yet, so we'll get to that later on. But thank you so much. So you've given us a flavour of the project. So Philip's going to do the same thing, and then we'll hear from Natasha from Newham Libraries. So if you want to, you can either stay on the screen, Jamie, or camera off for the next few minutes at your choice, while I pass over to Philip Cook, who's the Libraries and Archives lead at Manchester Libraries. Philip, will you introduce the digital commission that you were interested in, what you're thinking? Introduce yourself first and foremost, sorry, and describe yourself, and then just go into a little bit of detail about the project.
Thank you, Linda. Yes, I'm Philip Cook, Libraries and Archives lead at Manchester City Council. I'm a white middle-aged man wearing glasses today. and wearing a headset as well. So I'm going to tell you about our Marcus Rashford Wall of Hope digital resource that we created as a result of this, and the process behind getting it up and running. I remember the moment we were in a very exciting situation of having £20,000 to spend on a project, which is quite an unusual thing for us in local government, and sitting in a room with 3 other people. And we decided quite quickly that we wanted to create the digital resource on a collection, because we've got hundreds of really exciting collections in Manchester here. We wanted it to be of interest to people in Manchester, but also wider. So we chose our Marcus Rashford archives, partly because it's got so many themes around anti-racism, community spirit, children's voice, etc. So what is the Marcus Rashford archive? There's a mural of Marcus Rashford in the Withington area of Manchester, which is south Manchester. And after the 2020 Euros, which was in 2021 because of COVID, where Marcus Rashford was amongst those who missed a penalty, the mural was defaced, and there was racist attacks on Marcus and 2 of his fellow footballers online. The residents of Withington were disgusted by this and started to put messages of hope on the mural, followed by people from other parts of the northwest and other parts of the country, even people internationally, putting all these messages of hope to Marcus. 4 days later, the rain started to come down as it does in Manchester. It's just amazing. It took 4 days for that to happen, and we rushed along to Withington and scooped up all the messages, all the objects. For example, there was tins of soup with messages of hope written on it because of Marcus's link in with the Holiday Hunger campaign. It's some really quite emotional material. We've then had those previously. We've had those digitized and stored in our central library. We very quickly decided to give virtually all of the 20,000 to the commission, realizing it was going to take that much time to get the commission up and running. We then started to work on the tender with support from Space, and the first and most important question was, who is this for? The best thing about libraries, but also the worst thing about marketing libraries, is it's for everyone, but we also decided that it was going to be for schools. So we set along a full procurement exercise, selected the company called MBD, and they were great to work with. They included testing phases, working with schools to make sure that the resource was going to be successfully used in schools, and it was launched in January. It really is fantastic, and I'm sure the links will be shared today. It includes an explanation, 3 videos presented by Carl Anker, who co-authored the Marcus Rashford books. It includes a taster of the collection, so it's available to be, the collection's available to be viewed by people across the world, and showing digital version of the objects and school worksheets, so it can be used in schools.
So, just to interrupt you, Philip, we put all those links in there, and we're also putting in a link to, there's that feature that ITV came and did on the was it St Paul's school, so people
absolutely,
seeing how the resource is actually working. Anyway,
it really has gathered interest. I'll come on to that right at the end. I'm nearly finished anyway, but the level of work involved with this shouldn't be estimated, and Jenny, who's on the call, did nearly all the work, so I personally thank her for that. Working with MBD, the supplier, and working with Withington Walls, who were the community group that we worked with. They were the people who originally commissioned the Marcus Rashford mural. And it did take a lot of work, but we're so pleased that we did it, and so pleased with this opportunity. So if you're going to do anything, people on the call, watch the videos and give the site a go. We're managing to get it through to Manchester, to the Northwest, national, and hopefully international, which is what the Ed from Withington Walls set us the challenge of doing when talking about marketing, is get it global. So over to you to have a look at it, but Jenny will be answering questions in a minute.
That was great. What an excellent summary. Thanks ever so much, Philip. And now I'm going to invite Natasha Nelson from Newham Libraries, so again, this is a very different project yet again. Natasha, would you like to introduce and describe yourself, and then tell us about Threads of Home?
Yeah, so I'm Natasha Nelson. I'm Digital Inclusion Coordinator at Newham. I am a woman with curly hair and a ponytail. I'm wearing a very summery jumper to try and get the sun to come to my very dull apartment right now. For the commission, first of all, we wanted to focus on our community in Newham. So we have a very diverse borough, and we wanted to celebrate that. We wanted to celebrate the culture. We have a very high South Asian population, so we decided to focus on that population. And then we also, when trying to pick kind of a partner to work with, we had a few partners where we'd kind of talked about working together. We'd met and nothing had really happened because we didn't have the budget or the right project hadn't come along. And in particular, we have an area in Newham at Stratford called the East Bank, which has a lot of universities there that have recently opened up over the last couple of years. But that area of Newham is like it's separated from everywhere else. It's kind of like there's like the new Westfield Shopping Centre there, and then there's them over there, and it's kind of hard to get to. A lot of Newham residents feel like they don't belong over there. So I really wanted to work with one of those universities to try and get a better partnership for us, but also for residents to actually utilise the resources over there. So we decided to work with London College of Fashion, LCF. And at first, even when they wanted to work with me, I was like, oh, what could I do with a fashion college? Like I work in digital inclusion. But we went over there and I saw like they had so much kit, and a lot of it is digital now, and from the fashion shows that they do online to some of the way that they make their fashion. So we wanted to work with them, and we knew that they had a great amount of knowledge and experience and resources. I also thought because of that they would have that it would be good value for money. So if they already have resources and they already have the kit, and the money could be better spent on people, getting really good people, really good creatives who know what they're doing and can really give us the best possible project, which I think worked really well. And then, yeah, we kind of just had this vague idea of wanting to do something around celebrating tradition and culture and traditional dress, which turned into a project where we created a virtual reality animated film, which kind of brings in some of the stories and some kind of drawings that people did in some workshops in Newham. And also bits of Newham are also in the film as well, which is really nice. So it kind of brought the people and the culture and the place all together.
Lovely. Thank you. That's a lovely introduction. We've put in a link to the piece the University of the Arts or the London College of Fashion did a write-up, which is it's a really nice summary of the project. And I know it's from their point of view, but they've included that the 2D version of the film in there, so people can watch that as well and get a feel for it. So all of that, so it's a fantastic introduction to the project. Smashing. So Natasha, will you stay there? And I'm going to invite Philip's colleague Jenny is joining us to talk about the detail of how she managed that project in Manchester. Jamie's coming back, and Natalie Woolman, who has been exec producing the project from the space, is also joining. So Jenny, Natalie's going to take over with them asking the questions of the people because she's been working with everybody so much. So I'll get Jenny to introduce herself first, Natalie, and then you, and then away you go. So hello, Jenny. Would you just say hello, introduce yourself, and describe yourself?
I'm Jenny Marsden. I'm an archives officer at Manchester City Council, and I'm a white woman in my 40s with brown hair.
Smashing. Thank you. And Natalie, and I'll just Jamie, are you able to come back onto the call now as well? Here he comes. Great. Hello. Natalie, would you like to introduce and describe yourself, and then away you go with the questions?
Yeah, I'm Natalie Woolman. I'm the Spaces executive producer for broadcast and special projects. I'm a white woman with dark hair, and I'm wearing a stripy cardigan today. Yeah, so I've got some questions for each of the three about each of the three projects. I'm going to start with you, Jamie. The Speaking Garden is such a beautiful example of transforming a space within a library, as you've already touched on. And as Linda alluded to, one of the reasons, one of the big ticket items in the Leeds calendar, city calendar, is Leeds Light Night. And we very much were geared towards the Speaking Garden being open for those very special 2 nights. How did you approach the audience experience in the venue, and what do you think made it successful, perhaps specifically around Light Night?
Yeah, so Light Night we've been doing, I suppose, for quite a few years on a no budget kind of program where we kind of use the space as a bit of a respite from the city. Light Night attracts 100,000 people a year to come and see visual projections across the city, and libraries kind of create, put on a night. So each night we kind of get around 5,000 people a night. So it's this steady stream of people coming through. They visit the art gallery, they come through the library. And so we kind of cater for quite a different audience than we normally get. People that have kind of, haven't been in a library before, or haven't been for years. So it was really kind of creating a space for people to engage with our collections, be surprised what we do and what we hold, and to be that bit of a safe space, a respite. And so we were really kind of, trying to create an exhibition that has sort of the tranquilness of a garden with 5,000 people in that space. So it was quite a difficult thing, and obviously we've got to be able to get all those people through that exhibition. So yeah.
And that is just for everyone watching. You've got a still of the projections from the Speaking Garden behind you, which are these amazing high res, yes, botanical drawings, which are kind of this beautiful, unique collection that people can't handle the books, but it was a way of showing them. And you sent me you shared some photos afterwards of people on bean bags, people like, that idea of a respite. I think you really knew what the audience wanted on those 2 nights as they kind of go through the city.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, we tried to achieve that with the soundscape. So we worked with a company called Buffalo Sound Design, and they specifically kind of work with sound installation. And so as part of this project, they researched our GOT collection and chose 200 scans from our collection that we could then project onto the big screens behind you, and also display the books around in the space in the cabinet so people could look at them. But then obviously, kids can touch them, and we used hanging screens so people could kind of interact with them. They had a motion and a movement without actually having to really kind of animate them. But yeah, the soundscape was a collection of voices from our communities, and I think we had around 100 voices that people were able to submit themselves. They could record it on their phones and submit it through the website. And we also went out and used our amazing kind of community teams to go and collect those sounds. And we asked 2 questions really: what does gardening and gardens and growing mean to you? And what you have learned about gardening and like to kind of pass on to others. And a lot of those kind of responses were very kind of, it sort of kind of all fell back to this kind of well-being and kind of feel, I suppose, that sort of very kind of mental health focus. But it was amazing to be able to see those visuals and hear the voices and the sort of tear-jerking stories of people in the gardens, and from very young children right way up to quite elderly sort of wise gardeners. So yeah, amazing, really good.
A really beautiful piece. And to turn to Jenny, you were also dealing with very delicate archive, but a different kind of delicate archive, in that as Philip said, the Marcus Rashford mural collection, lots of kind of post-it notes, real ephemera that was put on the mural that Manchester Archives collected. And you've used it to, create this amazing resource focused on a key stage 2 audience. In your mind, when you started the project, what do you think were the biggest opportunities and challenges ahead?
Well, I think we are always looking for more ways to engage children and young people with our heritage collections. And so this particular archive, we just saw it as such a good way to do that, such a great opportunity to really make children realise that the things they care about and the activities they're involved in can become part of our shared heritage as well. Obviously, Marcus Rashford is a great role model. He's very appealing to young people, and the football connection helps with that too. And it fits with really important work that schools are doing in terms of anti-racist action and empathy. And we wanted to do something around that. But so with all of that in mind, we would love for all of the schools in Manchester, every child to have an opportunity to engage with this collection. And some initial work that we had done, pilot sessions, showed that there was real potential there for some really meaningful engagement work. But as you said, the material is delicate. It's held here in our strong rooms. It's one of our collections. We're committed to preserving it for the future, so we can't send it out to schools for them to explore themselves in that way. And equally, not every school is able to come to the library for sessions, so making it available online is a really, really good way for us to just make it so much more accessible for people in Manchester and beyond. And so, we're really hoping that this resource means every child in Manchester will have the opportunity to engage with this collection at some point during their school journey. And I think more broadly, highlighting this particular collection and making it accessible digitally demonstrates that as an archive service, we're committed to collecting and providing access to the city's heritage beyond traditional understandings of archive collections, and that we're interested in sort of representing the heritage of diverse communities that make up the city of Manchester. So it's a sort of, it's a way to demonstrate that commitment for us. And then in terms of challenges, I think the commissioning process was very new for us, that creative commissioning process. So it was really good to have the support of the space. They were able to guide us really and advise on the technical side of things and what was actually going to be possible. Another challenge is that within our department, we don't have particular expertise in anti-racist education. But we were very grateful to work with some partners from the Ahmed Iqbal Race Relations Resource Centre. And they were our critical friend on the project, particularly in terms of looking at the education resources that were produced to accompany the interactive element of the resource. And then finally, I think we were really quite ambitious with what we were trying to achieve in the time scale and with the funding that was available. So in that regard, we feel really, really lucky that the company that we commissioned, MBD, submitted a proposal because they seem to have quite a deep understanding very early on of what we were trying to achieve and have been able to create a brilliant resource for us. So it worked out well.
Good. Yes, I would, as Philip's already done, I would encourage everyone to take a look at it because it's an amazing resource to kind of browse, but it's also got some really structured educational resources for schools and youth groups to use. So, Natasha, your Threads of Home is slightly different from the other two projects we're hearing from in that you started from scratch. You didn't focus on something that was already in your collection. It started with fashion illustration workshops, as you said, and then those gradually evolved into this amazing VR experience. What did you learn through that kind of community co-creation process?
I think it was quite difficult to get going because I had to come up with an original idea, but I didn't really know what was possible from the university's perspective. I didn't know what they could do. I didn't know what exact resources they had. I didn't know how far the budget could stretch. And they didn't really know what I wanted exactly. So it kind of created this like chicken and egg thing where I think it was quite slow to start. Because I was kind of like, well, I kind of want to do this, but I didn't want to go too out there because I didn't really know what was possible. And they were kind of holding back because they didn't really know what they wanted. They didn't know what the budget was at first. And it took a while for us to kind of come up with the exact idea and to kind of go through the ideation process. And I think just starting from scratch when you're not the creative doing it and you're project managing it, I found quite difficult. And commissioning, again, is not something I've done before. So it was just quite difficult. I think in hindsight, If I was to do it again, I probably wouldn't hold back as much and just go with all the crazy ideas and just see where it leads. But I was like, oh, I don't want to be asking too much of someone. But definitely, I think, my ideas weren't too crazy at the end of the day. And I think also, though, through the ideation process, because of that, it meant that the project changed quite a bit while we were doing it. And I think I was aware that that was going to happen, I think. And I just think it's something to be mindful of, because I think if you're not open during that process, then you might create something that's not fully joined up and doesn't feel as smooth. But I feel like I created a space where the creatives were able to be creative, and we were able to bounce ideas off each other and talk about it. And we were able to create something really lovely.
Yeah, it's really lovely. And you launched at London College, sort of late at London College of Fashion, and it was amazing to see kind of the community participants with lots of London College of Fashion students. There was a real moment of kind of celebration for the project, I think, which brings us very neatly onto engaging audiences. All of these 3 projects created some really rich visual material that was incredibly useful for marketing the projects, particularly on social media. And just because I'm aware of time, I'm going to go to Jamie first. What do you think helped you attract your target audiences? How did you think through how you were going to put together marketing material that was going to bring in the audiences to your new space that you were after?
Yeah. Well, gardening. Everybody loves gardening. I didn't realize how much people love gardening and can talk about gardening forever and ever. So it was, yeah, it was great. We had already had, I suppose, a lot of the British Library marketing material, and there was a lot of talk about that exhibition. But yes, going out and working with, I suppose the other thing that was really key in this project is we kind of combined the 3 elements to just bring that exhibition together. So the VR film commission was again very much on that same theme, and talking about gardening and what gardening means to them, and going out and visiting personal gardens, indoor gardens. And so that had a great traction right way through the summer of us going out and talking to public, talking to public gardens, private gardens. But then, yeah, I think Buffalo did quite a really nice job of creating a marketing response from our collection that had a kind of quite a striking visual, and that was really good for sort of social media. And then we had quite a lot of press coverage as well, because gardening, people just love it. So yeah, it was really good. And then for us to have 2 nights in the light night program, and us being kind of really, before we were just a little mention, but actually we were a stop this time round. So again, that kind of seeing us on the program was a real kind of great achievement on the website. So again, it just brought lots and lots of different kind of people through our doors. And having it over quite a long period of time, had a lot of audience engagement and a lot of kind of social media response. So lots of people using the space to set their off, have meetings and sit there and do drawings. Groups would come through, so it just sort of naturally sort of grew, I suppose. Sorry for the garden reference.
I'm amazed you've got this far without a gardening plan. And just very briefly, I'm just going to go to Jenny, because obviously it's a very different approach to marketing for the Marcus Rashford resource, because it's schools primarily you're targeting. So it's a very specific marketing approach. Do you want to just touch briefly on how you've approached marketing?
Yeah, so we're still in the very sort of early stages of our resource being out in the world, because we only launched right at the end of January. So we were really pleased to get the resource featured in a piece on Granada Reports, as Philip mentioned earlier, and that was through our partner Ed Wellard of Withington Walls, who made that connection. And that was just really invaluable, because they came and they filmed in the school, they interviewed a teacher and the children as well about why it was important to them, and how they found using the resource, and also how the teacher found delivering a session around it. So it was really brilliant to see it in action. and see it represented in that way. And then we're also working with a PR agency over the next few months who are hoping to get some really targeted press coverage in the education press, and they've secured some in publications like Primary Times, that sort of publication, and also we have this idea that we're working towards with them, which is to get some features around the World Cup in the summer as well. So making that connection. So it's quite targeted, and we're grateful for the support of the PR agency who are doing that for us. So and obviously, as the library service, we also have quite we have networks with education around the city as well. So we are disseminating in that way across lots of our newsletters and networks in that way. So it's going out. So lots of other departments within the council are sort of promoting it for us as well with the people that they work with. So that's great that it's going out across all of those different areas.
Yeah, and you also, as Karina and Helen said about the VR tour earlier, you've been able to utilise your network of librarians. You had a training session for them, so the branch librarians can also, promote it as much as possible across the city.
Exactly, because they work with schools all the time and young people. They have school visits and run sessions, so it means that some of the branch librarians can also facilitate sessions using the resource in the library, and we can use things like on all the PCs across Manchester libraries. We can put a picture of the resource up on the the holding screens for those and things like that. So yeah, we're maximising the marketing potential that we have really as a local authority.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, brilliant networks. And that sort of speaks to the bigger question about partnerships. And Natasha, you built such a strong partnership with London College of Fashion throughout this. I wonder if you can talk a bit about what worked well in that partnership and where you think that might take you in future.
Yeah, I think LCF themselves, London College of Fashion, they have a really great team and a strong network of creatives. So I think actually they themselves were the ones that really held that side of it in terms of the partnership. They were able to leverage kind of the local talent and get the artists on board, and also because the artists that they were working with were South Asian themselves, they were really passionate about the project and were really willing to go above and beyond. So I know the budget, the 20,000 budget would not have stretched if we'd done it ourselves. We would not have gotten such a good piece. But because of the contacts that they had and because people were really invested in it and it was really close to their hearts, we're able to really get so much out of everyone, and everyone was really passionate about it. So I think just working with people who are really interested in what you're doing, I think makes such a difference. And I think working with LCF as well, it was quite difficult because we work so differently. We'd never worked with a university before. So it was quite difficult to kind of get the balance right and to understand how each other work. But we've come out with something that we're all really proud of. And I think because of that, even though at times I was like, oh my God, this is so stressful. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. At the end, we were like, let's do something again together because, we did something that we're all really happy with and it worked really well. And I think we found each other's strengths in the end.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And I'm sure there'll be shortcuts, ways of working next time. So
Definitely.
I'm just aware of time, so I just want to ask you all quickly, Linda, if that's okay, about legacy. Yes, so I'll go to Jamie first. What do you think the legacy of the project's been for you? What's changed for you in terms of how you work as a service or as, how you're approaching things as a result of the commission?
Yeah, no, for me, it's, I've been trying to get a projector on the ceiling for 8 years, and I work in the council, so it's hard. But having a sound system and a projector system has been a massive, legacy for us. How our staff really kind of think about our exhibitions differently, and how, what exhibitions we can kind of put up. We've already seen pop-up exhibitions using the projector and the sound. Just for, we can put it up for a day. It's now currently being used by the British Library again for Story Explorers. So it's a massive children's exhibition in there. And just that kind of ability for us to be able to put on professional exhibitions in our spaces is really, really kind of key, and it just changes how people, people's perception of a library space and what it can be. Really, for us, is a big legacy.
Yeah, and a big that's a big one. Jenny, what about you?
I think we'd have a lot more confidence going into another creative commission, having been through the process once already, and it showed us what is possible in a relatively short space of time if you're working with the right people. So I think when we're looking at our collection priorities across, our broader collections, the potential for this kind of work is something that we'll consider when we're, alongside existing criteria, when we're deciding where to focus our resources. Can we do a great digital project, a creative digital project with this collection, and who would we reach that can, help us to really improve the access and engagement to our collections. And then finally, we work with a lot of people that we've built good relationships with, and we're very keen to work with them again if another suitable opportunity came. So yeah, I think just for example, the film that we commissioned, the people that we work with on that film were absolutely fantastic. So if we need another film, then we've got these great filmmakers that we know would were really on it and did a great job. So that sort of thing, we kind of feel as we've made some really useful connections.
Amazing. And Natasha, you've maybe touched on it a little bit there, saying there might be a future project. Anything else about legacy you feel from this project?
Yeah, I think the same as Jenny. Like, I think if we were to do something else and like this, it would be a lot easier. And also to work with any university, but particularly London College of Fashion, I think we've developed a great relationship. But on top of that, I think that the film itself is something that we can build on. So there's been, lots of people asking for translations. So the film itself, we can do more with it. And we could also build on it, do other films. We've had people who are from East Africa saying, can you do one about our culture and things like that? So I think there's definitely the potential to do more of the same and to build on what we've done. And then the third thing I'd say is we already had quite a strong what we call STEM offer. So we do a lot around coding, robotics with families. We were doing a bit of VR. And this gave us the opportunity to kind of build on that. And we did really want to have a strong STEM offer. And I think now with this project and with the VR tour and the 180 film, I think we're able to kind of establish ourselves in East London as a library service has a really strong digital arts offer, and we definitely want to do more and build on it and do more grants in the future.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a real pleasure hearing about all of those in detail. So I'm going to hand back to Linda.
Thank you, and I have really enjoyed listening to you as well. Great, thank you. So the last section, we're looking at interim evaluation findings, and then also what next steps might be for this work. So I'm going to invite Viv Niblett, who has taken on the role of evaluator for this project, and she's going to share some of the findings to date, which have been not at the point of being published yet, but it's just a kind of a sense of where we are now. So Viv, would you like to introduce and describe yourself and then just fire ahead with your presentation?
Sure. Thanks very much, Linda, and hi, everybody. So I'm Viv. I'm a 40-year-old white woman, wavy hair, quite messy, and glasses and a stripy top today. I'm the independent programme evaluator commissioned by the space to evaluate the library's digital network. So that's exploring how it's been delivered, what difference it's made, and what can really be learned from this programme to inform work in the future. So the space have asked me to take a few minutes now to introduce a little bit about the evaluation, which, as Linda says, is a work in progress. But then I've got some early findings and particularly some sort of scores on the doors from the VR tour to share. So I'm just going to share my screen. And Linda, could you perhaps give me a thumbs up if that's there? Brilliant. Thank you so much. So it feels kind of criminal to try and reduce everything that we've just been hearing about in those fascinating conversations from this programme down into some diagrams. But let me say a little bit about what this evaluation is trying to find out, and really what it is that the library's digital network really was intended to achieve, and how evaluation is going to explore that. So as we've been hearing, the programme really came out, I thought kind of Fiona and Sarah Jane talked about this opportunity that libraries present as accessible, trusted spaces for individuals and communities who we know are generally less likely to take part in or access arts and cultural experiences. And that includes digital experiences as well. We know that they're less likely to have access elsewhere. We also know digital creators, it's not new as such, but it's a growing area, it's developing. There's a lot of sort of development happening in this. And we know that there's skills and knowledge, confidence, other kinds of capacities needed to really make that offer to audiences, which libraries don't necessarily feel that they have. So I think what this programme has been trying to do is working through these direct ways of working through the tour, through the commissions that we've just talked about, as well as other kinds of kind of learning and legacy support to really try and help those libraries develop those capacities. And key thing for the evaluation is really around why do that? What are the outcomes? So the idea is that libraries are able to then feel confident to commission, produce and present digital cultural experiences in their own spaces, and that by doing that, more people who may not have had access to digital arts, digital culture, have a chance to experience in their library. So that's a real kind of whistle-stop kind of headline look at what that programme is, and the evaluation is really exploring how that's been delivered, what change it's achieved, and what we can learn from it. That's a huge work in progress. As I say, I've got some early findings today, and so I'm just going to talk you through a little bit about that outcome around audiences, and particularly looking at the data from the VR tour. So I think we've sort of trailed earlier that we've sort of got an understanding now of kind of audience reach for this tour. So we've had just under 5,000 people have taken part in the VR tour offered by these 9 libraries. And really happily, the wonderful library services kind of hosting this tour have gathered data from a sample of over 1,000 of those people, so we can understand a little bit about who they are, not just that they're people who've come through the door. So starting with where they've come from, so you can see kind of represented by little blue spots on the map there, showing the spread across England so far. Obviously, as I said at the top, so this programme has really kind of responded to the opportunity to reach audiences who might not otherwise have access to digital cultural experiences, such as using a VR headset. So I think there is a question around what do we understand from the data about whether that's happened. And there's some quite interesting findings in the demographics that we have of participants. So the first of those is around their age. So we can see that the biggest single group you can see there is that the tour has brought in is younger children and families. But there's also this distribution amongst young people, amongst adults, and perhaps we see kind of lower uptake with older adults as well. So it's kind of interesting patterns around age there. A second finding, which I find really interesting, is that audiences have tended to come from areas of higher social deprivation. So I know some of you will be familiar with what we call the indices of multiple deprivation, or the IMD, which we use to understand social and economic disadvantage. So I think what this data is showing us is that actually over half of participants in this tour came from 30 most deprived postcodes. And we know that those areas of deprivation also tend to be for people who are less likely to have engaged in arts and culture as well. So some really interesting indications that what we see here is that people who may not have as much access to arts and culture typically have come to take part in this tour. We've data for another way of looking at new audiences. So audiences who are new to VR and those who are new to using their library service. So yeah, you can see the data here shows so it's 52% of participants using VR for the first time, and 58% were attending an event in their library service for the first time. So I think in both cases we're seeing more than really kind of half of, at least half of participants, more than that, having a new experience in some form, whether that's of their library or of VR when they took part in the tour. So we've kind of got all those numbers, which I think suggest some really sort of interesting things around how the VR tour being offered in libraries has reached new audiences. I think we're kind of starting to see that coming through the data. But really the last slide I wanted to show is about what does audiences have thought of it. So the comments we have suggest a really positive experience for participants. You can see those there in purple on the right-hand side. Obviously, there are a couple of comments in amongst that about people who've felt dizzy or had difficulties with the headset. It hasn't been without challenges for some, but really the overriding sentiment from audiences is around fun and interest, and experiences that can be kind of, you know, exciting or relaxing. I think going back to that earlier conversation about what was available. So we've got those comments coming through, and we also have this data on asking kind of audiences across the board about their experience. So there was really strong agreement. I'll just show over a really, really strong agreement across all of these statements. I think that top one, that people would do it again, is really interesting. The one that I think is kind of interesting, and I'll sort of leave you with as a bit of a thought, is this second one about feeling support by organisers, which also had really, really strong agreement. And I wonder if there's something there around how important it has been, how libraries and their staff have delivered this experience to people, and what has that meant for this programme and for what appears to have been a really positive audience experience. So that's a question to be further explored in the evaluation. Do keep your eyes out for that. And I hope you've enjoyed hearing the kind of initial headlines from the tour. I think that's my time up, so I'll hand back to you, Linda.
Fab. Thanks ever so much. That's really helpful, Viv. It's really interesting to hear how it's all beginning to evolve, and the findings are intriguing to you. If there's any questions about evaluation, please do add them into the chat now, and then I'm going to invite Fiona. So if you can camera off if you like to, I'm going to invite Fiona back, who's just going to say a few words about what the next steps might be in this process or in the thinking. Thank you, Fiona.
Indeed, indeed, and thanks to Viv. It's really, really, really heartening to kind of see the qualitative stuff coming through there, the words that people are using. And I was just going to say, I couldn't endorse more that I think we always thought at the outset that libraries were unique kind of cultural spaces that have a relationship of trust with their communities that isn't necessarily reflected in lots of other cultural spaces for engaging. So, you know, it's really, really fascinating to see not only the diversity of people that have come through the spaces, but actually the number of people who've commented on it being a safe and secure space to take families, children, older people, for people with accessibility requirements. You know, it's that is all incredibly heartening. And so we would really like to continue. We don't want to stop with this. And as Sarah Jane has already kindly alluded to, we do want to look at how we might extend the VR touring opportunity to other parts of the UK. At the moment, this programme is focused just in England, but we would love to bring in library services and colleagues in the other nations, and also to look at a kind of a broader offer across the UK as a whole. And we think that there's lots of potential there for what we can do in terms of providing the centralized resource, because I think the complexity here is you've got new technologies that are constantly iterating. You have content that is licensable from lots of different producers, but there isn't really a very coherent distribution network for that content. So actually licensing the content for the use in libraries or in any other cultural spaces is still a bit of a minefield. So there is a huge amount that suggests that a centralized provision of both the technology, the support for using the technology, and the licensing is something that it would be great to consider the libraries coming together and that network actually supporting and providing. So we would like to kind of evidence what happens when you scale up beyond. So that is definitely there. On the other side of the programme, in terms of the digital commissioning, everything that we've heard from everyone participating earlier, and you know, it is great. And I think that engagement with that development of partnerships, that building a kind of new sort of definition of what a library hub can provide and offer to its communities is incredibly important. So we are also continuing our conversations with Arts Council England about how we might extend the programme on there. So I think in both of with both our current funders, we're also Isabel, who's on this call with us here from Libraries Connected. We really want to continue our partnership with Libraries Connected to see how we can work with them to really develop the peer group aspect of the current programme, so that feels that there is there's not just legacy, there's sustainability built into this, so that as we develop projects in one library service, the learning from that is being shared with another library service. We can look at how the human resource can be being shared, the knowledge and skills can be being shared. It's not necessary for every library service to feel like they have to do this all on their own. So we really want to kind of look at how that peer group network continues to develop what it can offer, greater than the sum of its parts. And then I think the final thing I would say, because obviously this is all very speculative at the moment, but we are also looking at whether there's a skills training element that we would push into the program. We tried a little bit of that in this program, but it wasn't really a front and center priority. But we'd really like to look at, given the focus that most library services have around young audiences, what can we be doing to work with them to help provide an introduction and awareness of what the kind of jobs and opportunities are for young people in the creative industries across the cultural sector. And again, I kind of come back to that, libraries are a unique space, and we know that we would access a much broader community of young people if we could provide that offer within the library services.
Lovely. Thanks, Fiona. This feels like it's a good moment to bring Isabel in, isn't it? Just, Isabel, we'd asked you to make some comments really at the end of this webinar. Hello. Just to reflect on what you've heard, really, what you'd like to share with the audience.
Hello, everybody. Wow, this is amazing. I'm Isabel. I'm the Chief Executive of Libraries Connected. And I've been in this role for 8 years now. So it's amazing to see how this kind of work has really, grown so much, especially through this program. It's really accelerated the way libraries can work with new technology and make that accessible to their audiences. So I think listening today, there's I think 5 factors that have made this such a success and made it such a successful program for libraries, particularly why libraries are such fertile ground for this. So firstly, there's the staff attitude. And I think that was embodied by Helen at the start of this session, saying we didn't have any knowledge, but we were excited. And I think that really is what library staff are like, really keen to try new things, look at new ways they can bring great experiences to their audiences. So that's been amazing to see that echoed across all the presentations. The second factor is about the audience reach of libraries. And as Corinna said, they're now able to take these experiences out to everyone from little children in school settings or early years, right out to people at the other end of life in dementia groups. So that universal reach of libraries is quite extraordinary. And I think also there's a word there that somebody used about enticing people in. So libraries are a universal service. Anyone can wander in, do whatever, for what experience they want in a library. So libraries are very good at then hooking and enticing people. So, great that there's examples of people who didn't necessarily head to the library thinking, oh, right, I want to interact with VR and new technology. But they were kind of enticed in and found, this amazing, wonderful experience, and their horizons broadening. I think also in linked to the audience, why libraries engage with people and their communities, it isn't a one-off thing, it's a sustained, ongoing engagement through all sorts of different phases of an individual's life. So again, I think we've seen really good examples there of having the activity at the core, but engaging around it. So, Leeds talking about going out and having lots of conversations out in the communities around gardening. On Manchester, that really massive engagement across the city and wider around this great moment where something quite extraordinary was happening in Manchester. That engagement isn't a one-off, and libraries have really used this programme in that extended way with people. We've also heard about how libraries are both hyper-local, but also nationally and regionally connected. And I think that's been a real success factor for this, because each of the projects is very curated, is very bespoke to the communities and individuals around that library, or even around a branch. So very carefully developed based on those people there. But also, of course, it's part of a national programme, and libraries people are absolutely brilliant at working together to learn from each other. They're incredibly generous, I think, in sharing advice on what worked well, but even more importantly on what didn't work, what the mess-ups were, how they tripped up. And I think that's another reason why this has been such a success, everyone learning together and sharing that. I think the fourth factor why libraries are so brilliant at this kind of work is that they hold such amazing collections, and they're these places that hold stories. And I'm an archivist by professional background, so it's lovely to see this project bringing archives and libraries together and making those special collections much more accessible than they might otherwise be, as well as examples of libraries going out and collecting around newer local stories, voices and stories that would otherwise be forgotten. And now that example of a community coming to the library and saying, "Oh, we've seen you've done that. Can you also capture our experience as residents originally from West Africa?" So I think this programme's been an incredible opportunity to help reposition libraries. We've just celebrated 150 years of public libraries from their beginnings in 1850 with the first Public Libraries Act. And I think at that point, they were set up with this really quite extraordinary vision that they were not just somewhere you go for books or to sit and read the newspaper, but they were about gateways to knowledge and to high quality cultural experiences. So the first library buildings often had, you could borrow books, they had reading rooms where you could sit and study, but they often also had lecture rooms, so you could join in debates, you could hear a concert, exhibition halls where you could go and look at extraordinary museum and other collections. So it feels like this project is really repositioning libraries again to sort of embrace that multi-stranded role as that gateway to culture, as that gateway to experience, as that way of broadening out and opening up people's horizons to new stories, to new experiences and to new technology. So I'm just blown away, quite frankly, with the sort of outputs from all the projects in such a short time scale, and really excited that everybody so far seems super keen to continue and have another phase of this amazing work. And at Libraries Connected, we'll be just like super, super delighted to support that. So thank you, everybody.
Those are lovely words. Thank you, Isabel. That's great to hear your perspective on it. We've come to the end of our time now. It's 12:30. We've put